the most beautiful woman on the continent, an albino with white hair, the emperor's favorite jewel, besides being popular, is named Agnes, but now she is just a low-level healer. Two men are with her in the room, and the man sitting down says they've decided to inspect the territory to see if there are still any monsters, and that she will go alone to check the territory. He also says that the only thing she knows how to do is wear dresses and look at herself in the mirror. Kylo, the commander of the Black Knights, wonders how well she'll handle this mission, and they gave her a small gun. The man who was standing asks Kylo if she'll do well and what they will do if something happens to her while she patrols alone. If she gets scared, she'll probably run to His Majesty. Agnes thinks that His Majesty is very handsome and that when he is being sarcastic, it makes her heart beat faster, and working with her favorite is amazing. She is an otaku who died and entered the novel, but the problem is that her character has been courting a man for a long time, and her relationship with the favorite character went from bad to worse, to the point where she slapped him in the face. Moreover, the character had a bad temper. If this continues, she won't be able to change the story and get along with Kylo, and everything will be ruined. But the king appointed her as a mage of the Black Knights, and she is surprised by this. She runs and says she will do it immediately. She can't believe they gave her a chance, and that she will finally change the original story, wishing to hug him right away. But if she does that, Kylo will run away, and before that, she will pretend to be hurt by the man she was courting. So hurt that she started acting mature, not causing trouble, and she will boost Kylo's self-esteem. He says she's been using a lot of magic and asks if she's feeling dizzy. Agnes says she is, and thinks that she's not hugging him to satisfy her own desires. She arrives at a party, and the man she courted is with Kylo, while the nobles look at her in surprise. She will become a princess who abandoned the throne and a virtuous woman, and Kylo can expect that from her. And that, as long as she's there, he will only walk a path of flowers. Agnes can recognize Kylo at first sight. The man she always dreamed of is standing in front of her. But her hand raises to slap Kylo, even though she doesn't want to. 3 times in a row, she loses control of her hand and hits him. She remembers seeing this on social media in her previous life, where people asked what followers would do first if they were in a story with their favorite character. Agnes wrote that she would kidnap him, take him to her room, feed him, let him play, and stroke his hair. He definitely deserves to be happy, and she doesn't understand why she's hurting her favorite character. He grabs her hand, but involuntary words come out of her mouth, telling him to get his hands off her, even though she wants his touch and feels lucky. Kylo's face is red on both sides, and Agnes wonders why she did this to her favorite. If she reincarnated into a romance, she doesn't know why this is happening. Agnes thinks this is a dream. She walks toward him and faints on his chest. Kylo says there's no one worse than her. Princess Agnes has many derogatory titles: the Emperor's Jewel, popular, the most beautiful woman on the continent, and also the ticking time bomb. At a war-end banquet, she gets drunk and causes trouble. Kylo smells alcohol on her while she thinks she's pathetic and out of control. 2 men approach him and ask if he's all right. The royal family neglects Agnes. Kylo asks to escort her to the palace as quickly as possible. In every situation, she cannot complain, and everything is deplorable and unbearable. The next day, she has a meltdown because she doesn't know how to fix the slap situation. She thought it was just a dream, but her hands are swollen and she has a sore throat, and soon she had slapped her favorite character after reincarnating. In her past life, she was lying on the floor while people were calling the hospital. Agnes was upset that she died after leaving the cafe themed after her favorite character, but the real reason for her death was more unfair. A woman asks her if it's Agnes' first time meeting a goddess who controls the world, and says she has something important to tell her, but she's sorry, and that Agnes wasn't supposed to have died yet. Agnes asks her if her death was just a mistake. The goddess says yes, and Agnes asks if she's really a goddess. She then asks to be sent back, but the goddess says she's sorry, as Agnes' body has already deteriorated. Agnes thinks that if she had known she would die like that, she wouldn't have postponed reading her fanfics. The goddess says that, since it was her mistake, she will take responsibility. She tells Agnes to choose any place to live, whether fictional or real. Agnes asks to meet her favorite character. Frustrated, she thinks that she asked to meet her favorite character, but not to slap him, yet at least her request was granted. But one serious problem still remains. Platinum hair and lilac eyes are a striking, feline appearance. And the character she possessed is Agnes Saint, the villain of villains. The story begins with Raymond fighting demons, which became so popular that it was called the Geek Unification, attracting many people. Agnes in this story is always chasing Raymond, and calling her innocent is quite an exaggeration. At the celebration for the end of the war, someone says, "Who did more, aside from Lord Spencer?" That night, she told the nobles who ride on Spencer's reputation while squandering military funds that there's no difference between them and parasites. She said this to knights who had just returned from war, and they wonder what's wrong with her. Drunk, she went up to the Black Knights and told them they only caused trouble for Lord Spencer and that they are useless. The only person who approached Agnes was Kylo, the leader of the Black Knights, a former mercenary, and Raymond's eternal rival. Agnes asks if someone gave her an order, while the young knight just stared at her seriously. Kylo hated Raymond due to his inferiority complex because of his origins, and every time they met, he would insult Raymond. Because of this, Agnes and Kylo were classified as the top two villains in the world. Agnes, an arrogant princess, Kylo, the bad-tempered leader of the Black Knights. They completely despise each other, and everything is confusing from the start, and she knows she should have made the request properly to the goddess and regrets it. 2 days after the reincarnation, after that incident, her body started moving on its own. A maid asks if her head hurts, and Agnes says a little, while the maids are fixing her dress, and that her current state feels like possession. The goddess said she would reincarnate Agnes as a baby until, when she grew up, she would recall her past life, although most of the memories are useless. But that doesn't mean she's going to give up. She tells the maid that she caused some trouble in the Knight's Hall yesterday and asks where Kylo is at the moment, and that she'll do anything to improve her relationship with Kylo. The maid asks what she's planning to do, worried and trembling, saying that it was wrong for him to touch Agnes, but that she shouldn't cut his wrist. Agnes asks how the maid could say something so cruel and that she's only going to meet him. She wonders why everyone is making such a fuss, considering she prevented him from getting drunk. The reason is that Kylo belongs to the Black Knights, and the Imperial family has 4 orders of knights, the White Knights being the elite and nobles, the Red Knights being excellent mages, and the Black Knights, a group of troublemakers. With exceptional skills, they are known as war dogs for being on the front lines. This reputation isn't exaggerated because of fund mismanagement, aggression, and disorder. Agnes is on her way to Kylo and dressed nicely. Because of the Black Knight's image, Kylo was always discriminated against, and somehow his appearance overlaps with his suffering, and she fell in love with him at school and tried in every way to support him. She made clothes for him and baked cookies, but he was an unlikable character, making it hard to please him. In the first part of the novel, an incident occurred. Emperor Alexander won the war, but monsters began appearing after cracks opened, and the monsters started attacking civilians. They asked the priest what to do, and he said they should eliminate the source of the crack at the top of the mountain at the end of the world. There were few people capable of sealing the crack. The 2 strongest in the empire, Raymond, because of his intelligence and physical strength, and Kylo, with his combat experience. This meant that one of them had to sacrifice their life for it, and the person who did it was Kylo. The only reason he hated Raymond was because, after the war, the only one celebrated and praised by the people wasn't him. Kylo realized that he would never be able to surpass Raymond and left a single letter behind, saying that Raymond shouldn't die because he was the hero, and Kylo sacrificed himself to become a hero only in his death. His rise in popularity didn't stop on social media, especially when his traits were revealed, and Agnes went crazy, just like other users. He became a popular character, even having a themed cafe on his birthday, but only after he died. But in her current life, she will change Kylo's future and goes to his office, and she sees Kylo tied up by 2 men. Agnes asks one of them what this means. The man says the butler ordered preparations for the princess's visit. She didn't like the situation and tells them to release him immediately and leave quickly. She pushes one of her subordinates toward the door and the lock, just wanting to normalize things, but this keeps happening. Kylo tells her to finish this quickly and that he will accept the punishment for having touched her and for the court. She says she doesn't want to do that. Then he asks if he should offer his neck. And if that's not it, he asks if she wants him to remove his knight's uniform. Agnes is surprised by this and imagines him without a shirt. She blushes at the question, and Kylo says it would just mean leaving the knights, nothing more. He thinks that now, besides seeing her as a troublemaker, he'll see her as a pervert, and says that he'll just forget about what happened yesterday. Kylo asks if she's serious, and she agrees, but she's so embarrassed she can't look him in the eyes. There are many things she wants to say, but for now, she can't do that since she slapped him yesterday and suddenly showed affection for him today. He'd think she's crazy. Since he's sensitive, she'll approach him slowly and carefully, and for now, she'll pretend to be normal and win him over bit by bit. Kylo wonders why the princess came to him. He was sure she would expel him from the Knights, but suddenly she let it go. He thinks she's planning something, but he didn't expect this reaction from her, just a simple comment, and didn't expect her to have an innocent side. But somehow, he feels like he's scored a point with her, so it's not bad. A few days later, Agnes pretends to be sick and thinks about the original plot to approach Kylo from that moment. But after the incident of the previous night, her reputation is plummeting non-stop. The princess herself insulted those who fought for her life, and so her reputation will negatively affect Kylo. Someone calls out to Agnes and says the Emperor has summoned her. She thinks she's about to be expelled from the imperial family. The empire is ruled by the Saint family, to which she belongs. They developed weapons to fight demons, bringing peace to the continent and wielding great power. The highest authority is her father, Alexander. She arrives at the room where the Emperor is. In Alexander's mind, he thinks Agnes must be suffering and is upset. He's a very loving father and knows he can't cover up his daughter's mistakes, and he's thinking about what he can do. Seeing someone who resembles his late wife, his heart softens, but now he will give her a lecture. So, to deal with Agnes's ruined reputation, the Emperor tells her that she must know about the rumors circulating about her in social circles, and until her reputation stabilizes, she has to leave the capital. Thus happens the expulsion of the princess from the capital. The readers found this satisfying, but for her, this incident keeps her from seeing Kylo. And then she says she refuses, and for now, she will insist. The Emperor says that if she doesn't comply, he'll have to make another decision, and asks if she's okay with that. She says that as long as it doesn't involve leaving the capital, she'll accept anything. Agnes thinks it might involve cleaning stables, confiscating her dresses and jewelry, moving to the servants' quarters, or volunteering at the temple. But for Kylo, she'll endure anything. Then Alexander says she will be appointed as the Mage of the Black Knights. She's surprised by this, and the Emperor says she absolutely cannot accept it. And so, for now, Agnes says she'll do it immediately. Members of the royal family were mostly born with immense magical power, so it was common for them to join the White Knights, like her older brother Damien. But she had never participated in a mission because she found it troublesome, but now she's being sent to be with Kylo. Agnes smiles at the Emperor and says to change her affiliation immediately. Alexander calls for a doctor, as she's acting uncharacteristically non-arrogant, and now she has an excuse to see Kylo every day. Someone asks another person if they've heard the news and thinks that His Majesty went too far this time, as this is the first time a member of the royal family has joined the Black Knights. But since Agnes is evil, it's karma for her, and they've heard she's already recovered and must be embarrassed for not attending today's ball. Sirius, from the White Knights, appears and asks if they should gossip so much, but either way, people love to talk about others. Another man asks if there's anything wrong with her, noting that nobles have always talked about others. His name is Hugo, and Sirius says he can't listen to them anymore. Sirius is a pervert, but pretends to be a knight, and someone asks Hugo where Sirius is, and where he suddenly went. It's a woman who asks this, and her name is Diana, the captain of the White Knights. Another woman, who is with Diana, is named Hazel Devo, also a member of the White Knights. Hugo says that Sirius didn't want to hear legitimate criticism of Agnes and left. Diana asks what's wrong with Sirius, but admits she kind of likes it too. Agnes is Damien's only sister, so it wouldn't be nice to gossip about her. A girl with black hair says the White Knights have gathered there. Her name is Saint Liliana, and she asks what they were discussing. Hugo says they were talking about Agnes, and the saint says she never thought His Majesty would make such a decision. Santana was originally a commoner and received a revelation one morning, becoming a saint. Being beautiful but powerless, people's stares were never kind, and she was ridiculed by arrogant nobles and flirted with. However, after defeating several demonized nobles, her life changed completely. She was worshipped by them, and after experiencing that, she began to aspire to something greater. Hugo Rodion is the heir to Duke Rodion, who has a good reputation. He is obsessed with her. He says that, in any case, it worked out well since the saint won't have any unnecessary problems, and Santana says he shouldn't worry, and that although Agnes disapproves of her for being a commoner, it's natural. And that, unlike her, Lady Devo wouldn't be thrilled. There are only 2 men in the Empire worthy of her: Damien Saint, the Crown Prince, and Commander Raymond Spencer arrives. Liliana says that Lady Devo will feel relieved now, and Raymond asks why. She says that Lady Devo mentioned the princess and apologizes, saying she's not used to talking about nobles, but Raymond tells her not to worry. Diana thinks that Santana keeps people under control like that, and Hugo didn't realize it, thinking he's an idiot. Meanwhile, Agnes is at the center of all the commotion. Her lady-in-waiting had no idea what was going on. Her name is Daisy Rodion, and she says that Kylo Grey might be pursuing the princess. Daisy asks if Agnes has a fever because her face is red. She asks if she should call the doctor again and tell His Majesty that she's sick, so the Emperor can cancel the transfer. Agnes says it's fine. Agnes is happy that Daisy isn't afraid of her, unlike the other maids. She says that no matter how disorganized they are, since they won the war, they won't have difficult tasks. Agnes says her head is hurting and asks her lady-in-waiting to leave. The people of the Empire are intoxicated by the joy of defeating the devil, unaware that the peace won't last long. But Agnes knows where the demons will appear, so she will prevent the loss of lives that will occur in the eastern region 6 months from now. And she will put all of this on Kylo's account, as this is her plan. The Crown Prince arrives while Daisy is still leaving. Agnes asks him why he's visiting. He says that she's still the same because she greets him rudely. As Agnes leaves, Alexander tells Damien that Agnes seems strange, and that the doctor said there's nothing wrong with her, and that she didn't throw a fit for not attending the party, and he can't believe she's accepting the Black Knights. Damien asks if Alexander thinks she's alright. Alexander says she must have been possessed by a magic book that's trending in society lately, and Damien says she wouldn't have gone crazy like this. Alexander asks Damien to check on Agnes personally, since he's her only brother, and he says he'll reserve tomorrow to take a look. Back in the present, Damien asks the lady-in-waiting if she's Duke Rodion's daughter, and she agrees, saying she needs to talk to the princess alone, and she leaves. Damien asks her how long she's going to keep worrying His Majesty, and says that if she continues acting recklessly and irresponsibly, even as a princess, she won't be able to find a good marriage. He tells her not to stain the honor of the imperial family, reminding her that their father adores her and continues to take care of her, but that he, Damien, definitely will not. From now on, as a Black Knight, she will have to fulfill her duty. Agnes agrees, and he's surprised that she responded so obediently. She wonders why he's making that face, even when she gave him the answer he wanted. He tells her not to forget the promise she just made and leaves. After he leaves, Agnes wonders why her brother is like that. He's the type of person who is kind and friendly to others, but gets irritated only with her. Of course, she has done many things to deserve that, like chasing after Raymond, neglecting her duties while attending parties, drinking alcohol, and causing trouble on many occasions. Later, while flying through the sky, in a place where even golems are praying, the endless splash field is a fantasy world that blends steampunk with authentic fantasy. If she could, she would like to serve Kylo immediately and say a few words, but she holds back because tomorrow is finally the official day of her appointment to the Black Knights. The next day, the maid dresses her, and Agnes thinks it looks like a better uniform than the White Knights' uniforms. The maids comment that the uniform looks good on her. Agnes asks what they think, if it suits her, and they say that she looks good in anything, so she doesn't even need to ask. She says she can't always do what she wants, and now, as the Empress said, she wants to show virtue as a member of the imperial family, so they can both leave Wagner, since now she has to start as a Black Knight. They say that finally, she will be able to show Kylo how much she has changed, and this time he will really feel good. A man asks Kylo if the princess will come today, and says he can bet his knight qualification that she won't. Kylo recalls what the Emperor said a few days ago. As you know, Agnes lost her mother when she was young, grew up alone, and there's a rumor that she's selfish and unfit to be a healer, and it's true that she's very fragile. Agnes used to be terrified just by seeing a patient with symptoms similar to her mother's. Even knowing that her nanny had died, she saw her as almost a corpse. The Emperor said he knows he's being too soft with his daughter, but he can't help it. It's harder for him than dealing with political affairs. Although the princess is now his subordinate, this was a reminder to treat her cautiously. The Emperor says she can't live like this forever. He also mentioned hearing that Kylo was on the front lines and did a great job fighting demons, so he should know how to manage Agnes just this once, to make her taste the bitterness of life. Kylo asks if he's supposed to give the princess no special privileges and only think of her as a subordinate. He asks the Emperor if he agrees, and the Emperor hopes that she will be his subordinate, even if she doesn't like it. This order from the Emperor was quite unexpected. The authority of an emperor in this generation is incredibly powerful. If the princess fulfills her role as the Emperor wishes and thus gains his favor, those who despise her might receive a lesson, including her stepmother and half-siblings. And Kylo wonders if this serves as an opportunity to repay the disdain the princess has shown him all this time. Kylo says she will regret not coming, and that he doesn't expect her to come either. Someone announces that Agnes has arrived, to the surprise of both men, and she enters. Kylo thinks that Agnes hasn't fully understood the situation as the Emperor ordered, that she is not to receive any special treatment while wearing the Black Knight's uniform, so she must realize that by being there, dressed like that, she's ready to submit to him. Agnes agrees and says she has forgotten all that fear of dying because that's in the past, and believes that he will lead her without discrimination, just like the other members. Kylo wonders if she's now trying to flatter him. He says that she is now officially a member of the Black Knights, but notices something strange about her. He's used to people staring at him for being a legitimate son, but the princess ignores that fact and looks at him as if she's seeing the past, and it makes him feel awful. She's not the kind of woman who would easily throw away her pride, but today there's something different in her attitude, and he wonders what she's thinking. In her thoughts, she loves his sarcastic tone and keeps admiring his beauty. Meanwhile, in Kylo's mind, he thinks she's planning something. He says he will give her the first mission. Area A-15, in the eastern zone of the capital, is being reconstructed after the war damage. However, before the reconstruction, the Black Knights will patrol the area to make sure there are no remaining monsters. And she will go there alone, as the only thing she knows how to do is wear a dress and admire herself in the mirror, and he wants to see how she handles this mission. The weapon given to her will be a small pistol. Sending a healing mage, who isn't even a combatant, alone with just a small pistol is no different from saying he wants her to die if she encounters a monster. Agnes agrees and says she will go. His aide asks Kylo if, by going alone, she might not run into monsters. Kylo says that if she gets scared, she'll go crying to apologize to the Emperor. While Jeremy was visiting the members, the patrol of Area A-15 was already completed, but it wasn't announced to surprise the princess. The citizens have been evacuated, and the village is empty. The buildings still bear the horrors of the war, and above all, there's the tension of not knowing where something might emerge. It's only to ensure that the princess won't speak carelessly as she has before. Kylo tells Jeremy not to worry about it and just let her go, and that nothing dangerous will happen, so it doesn't matter if his subordinate agrees. Elsewhere, Sirius asks what's going on and says that Kylo is crazy. Raymond asks Sirius what he's talking about as he reads his report. Sirius says it's not important now, but that he clearly saw Kylo send the princess alone to Area A-15. As a precaution, he went to the weapons depot, and the item the princess took was a small pistol. Raymond says that Kylo has caused some minor problems on the battlefield due to his desire to gain merit alone, but everything was done intelligently, keeping within the lines, which resulted in only a light punishment. And that he's not the type of guy to make moves without thinking about what will happen afterward. There's no way someone so obsessed with power would do something that could provoke the Emperor's wrath. Even so, it wasn't clear that the plan was to discourage the princess. Sirius asks if, even so, it's possible. And what will Raymond do if she gets hurt, and if he should go on patrol right now? Raymond says he'll go check on the princess, and that Sirius should go to the mission area. And he tells Sirius to ask Kylo if he thinks the Black Knights are on the same level as the White Knights. Raymond wonders how long he'll have to look after the princess. When she was transferred to the Black Knights, he was relieved that he no longer had to take care of her. But she's been dragging him along since his first day of service, and maybe this time will be the same. He feels capable of doing anything, as long as it keeps him far away from her. Agnes finally arrives at the mission. Meanwhile, Agnes and Raymond are heading to Area A-15. In the Black Knight's commander's office, someone is talking to the commander and says that they'll finish up in Area A15, where they were yesterday. Kylo is surprised and asks if it wasn't finished yesterday. Another knight says that he submitted a preliminary report and that it's very annoying to have to do it and then go back. His name is Victor, and he informs the commander that the woman who went on the search with him yesterday suddenly panicked, said her cat was missing, and thought it was in his clothes. So, they stopped the search and returned, and now they'll have to go again. Kylo thinks he shouldn't have trusted the knights, and if the search wasn't finished, the princess must be in Area A15. In Area A15, a man asks what brings the princess, as they didn't know she was coming. And as a member of the Black Knights, she's visiting the patrol, obviously. They ask why she was sent to patrol an area that was supposedly already patrolled. She says that by the commander's order, she came to patrol the area. They opened the gate. Ames already expects that Kylo won't hurt her. He might be rude, sarcastic, full of insecurities, and lacking manners, but he's not a wicked kitten. My dear must have done this just to scare me secretly. See, in any case, the place is a mess. At least the residents were evacuated in advance, so there were few casualties. He wasn't wrong in thinking that people praised Raymond as a war hero. He had a brilliant strategy for understanding the demon's movements and plans, leading nearly every battle to victory. In addition, he's young, handsome, and carries the tragic burden of having lost his mother to demons in his childhood. But because of his brilliance, other knights were inevitably overshadowed, including Kylo, who fought on the front lines. Agnes hears a noise and wonders if it could be a monster, questioning whether this area was truly checked or if they simply didn't search properly. She wonders what she should do, but soon realizes it's just a cat, which seems accustomed to humans approaching. Perhaps it's a pet left behind during the evacuation. The cat is severely injured, so Agnes heals it with her energy. Agnes asks if the cat wants to patrol with her, and after they finish, they'll look for its owner. She hears another noise, and this time, it's a demon. It attacks, but Kylo saves her at the last moment and asks if she's alright. Kylo says he didn't intentionally put her in danger, that there was a mistake in the report, and he apologizes. He hands her a cloth to wipe the blood. Kylo asks if she's hurt anywhere, and she says just a little. This shows that they didn't check the area properly. Realizing this, they rushed to investigate, but it turned out great since they finally had a chance to meet again. Agnes asks Kylo if they can check the remaining areas together. Suddenly, Raymond appears. Raymond tells Kylo to wait before another accident happens. He offers Agnes a cloth to wipe her face. She wipes her face, and Kylo thinks his cloth was so dirty that she didn't want to use it. Raymond says he has already called the carriage and asks her to get in. Kylo thinks she's upset because she lost the chance to be alone with Raymond because of him. He does it because he wants to. Raymond tells Kylo that today everything went smoothly, but something like this must never happen again. Since the Imperial family is not a battlefield, and if Kylo acts on his own, he won't get anything he desires. Kylo thinks that Raymond is already acting like the princess's husband, and of course he pays attention since it's advice from the Empire's hero. But he finds it a bit presumptuous of Raymond. Since it was His Majesty's order to take care of the princess, he wonders why Raymond is acting like her babysitter now. Raymond expects Kylo to choose his words wisely. Kylo asks if someone who rejected the princess's advances is simply keeping several options open. Kylo believes Raymond's intention is to win the princess's heart and eventually become the Emperor's son-in-law. And Kylo sees him as a piece of trash, blinded by power, thinking that Raymond is no different in the end, and one day he'll expose his true dirty intentions. For Agnes, this is her first meeting with Raymond since she reincarnated. He is handsome, but not her type, saying his chest is too small and that she prefers a wilder, rougher feel. She thinks Raymond is so perfect that he lacks a sense of humanity, but still, she needs to pretend to like him. Agnes asks why he came there. Raymond explains that he came to ask her to be careful since she could put the Imperial family in danger. He tells her to pay attention, and from now on, she must show dignity as an example of a royal family member. Agnes asks if he's telling her not to bother him in the future, but to act properly. She says she knows she has involuntarily bothered him all these years and that she's aware of it. From now on, she promises she won't get in his way anymore. She pretends to be hurt to create a natural exit and says she's happy to hear that, and she trusts that she'll be faithful to her mission. From now on, no one will need to see her in the future. Agnes says she will leave now. Raymond tells her to go to the palace, and she gets into the carriage. Damien heard what happened. Spencer says that Kylo is resentful toward the princess. Damien says Agnes must have despised him all this time, but as long as it wasn't anything serious. Raymond tells Damien that Agnes promised not to bother him anymore. And in a very confident tone, Raymond says that she will be a major obstacle in his path someday, Your Highness. Agnes is a ticking time bomb, and no one knows when she'll explode, and it's not even worth the effort to eliminate her. It's just a matter of time, nothing more. Agnes has always been very beautiful and extravagant, but arrogant. Therefore, it was expected that she would marry soon. But the proud people of the Empire do not like the royal family marrying someone from another country. So, they sought a husband for Agnes within the Empire and chose Raymond Spencer, the most trusted servant and closest friend. However, the noble's perception of Agnes wasn't good at all. Raymond tells someone that such an incident should not be allowed to tarnish the honor of the imperial family. He says this to Agnes's older brother, who considers him a bastard and knows that she likes Raymond. But his words are too harsh. As her older brother, he sometimes complains about her, but it's different when it comes from an outsider. He tells Raymond that Agnes said she no longer cares for him, and that there's no reason for him to criticize her in front of him. And Raymond agrees. Their conversation seems to have ended, but this wasn't the end of the situation surrounding them. Meanwhile, on a beautiful and warm day, Agnes is at the palace. Two maids, named Chloe and Emma, call out to Agnes and are surprised to see her disheveled and wearing dirty clothes, stained with blood. Chloe asks if Agnes encountered a monster during her mission, and Emma asks if she's hurt anywhere. Both maids are known for being friendly in social circles, and then Agnes gets an idea. She says that if it hadn't been for Lord Grey, she would have been involved in a huge accident, and thanks to him, she was saved. In this way, she thinks she can boost Kylo's reputation by using the maids to spread the word that he saved her. Emma asks if he didn't make a mistake by putting the princess in danger, and Chloe says that if he had done his duties properly in the first place, this kind of problem wouldn't have happened. Chloe mentions that 1 or 2 knights were imprisoned because of an accident during the war, and on top of that, while she was passing by the knights' building, she bumped into Kylo, and instead of greeting her, he ignored her and gave her a terrifying stare. Both say that Agnes cannot trust him. Kylo's reputation is as bad as Agnes's, and the mission to improve his reputation will be a long battle. Agnes tells the maids that they must have misunderstood Lord Grey, that he's a determined person, and it's also true that he saved her. One maid says she heard that Agnes returned with Lord Raymond, and Agnes tells the maids not to mention him in her presence anymore, and the maids ask what happened. Agnes says she's not in a position to share details with them, and that she's also vulnerable and can be hurt. She says she's tired and that from now on, she's a heartbroken and exhausted woman. She says she needs to rest since she's not feeling well and she's covered in blood. The maids agree and leave her room, and everything went according to her plan, expecting the maids to spread her words. However, things didn't go as Agnes expected. After leaving the room, the maids comment that Agnes always used to talk about Raymond, and now this sudden change. Something very serious must have happened. Chloe says that the princess treats her staff well, even though they've suffered a bit due to Agnes's personality, but the benefits they get from working at the palace are huge. Agnes has given many things to Lord Spencer. Emma wonders if the Lord could have done something to her, and Chloe says no but questions if he might have used obscene language with her. Emma says he wouldn't do that, but Chloe makes her think twice and says that he rejected her in various ways. But this time, the princess seemed more depressed than before. And if Agnes was hurt, it wasn't just a simple rejection. They wonder how a supposed knight could do that, accepting everything she gave and now hurting her. The gossip spread that Raymond hurt Agnes. The rumor, which she hoped would be small, was amplified by the two gossipers. The nobles wonder how Raymond Spencer could do such a thing, and they never thought he would. That he would prefer to marry a piece of dandruff that fell to the floor rather than marry her, and that her place is in the gutter, not the palace. Before they realized it, Lord Spencer appeared, and they say they can't believe he's walking so confidently near the princess's castle. He had become the man who stabbed a price into Agnes's heart, and the rumor reached the king, who became furious. The Spencer family is one of the 4 great families of the empire, so prestigious and wealthy that no one can blame them. The king hated Duke Spencer, Raymond's father, because that man was the first love of the empress, meaning Agnes's mother. a sneaky person who, even after marriage, dared to seek her out to prevent her from marrying the king. The empress had forgiven it, but the king never forgot the feeling of anger. But Daniel didn't know what was happening and walked with his son until Agnes was deceived by him. For her to become his daughter-in-law, it would only be over his dead body. For now, it was fine because he thought the son would be different from the father, but he dared to hurt his daughter. The servant tells the king to calm down, that this might be a good sign since, according to the maids, Agnes ordered that his name never be mentioned again, and that this is a sign that Agnes has given up on her feelings for Spencer. The king asks if no one in the social circles knew about these rumors. The servant says they didn't know. The rumors spread so much that even socially inactive people know about it, including Kylo, who becomes outraged upon hearing that Lord Spencer verbally abused her. Kylo practices his martial arts and then sees two men with Lord Raymond Spencer. He has never liked Raymond because of his status, refinement, and knowledge, since Raymond was born with everything, while Kylo had to fight to get what he has, without anything in return. Raymond treats Kylo like trash and is blinded by power, as if Kylo's struggles don't deserve understanding. Now, he verbally abused the princess, proving to be a disgusting man. In the minds of the White Knights, who protect the royal family, they use the fact that Agnes liked him to treat her as a subordinate. Kylo wonders why Spencer pretends to be so noble and then suddenly drops the mask. Maybe it was because of the incident and he took it out on the princess. Kylo finally understands that Agnes cried because of him. He thought that, because she was proud, it would make her feel better, but knowing it was due to his mistake makes his heart tighten. It's also possible that the Emperor will use this incident to get rid of Kylo, which would be problematic, and he needs to apologize somehow. But the problem is that he doesn't know how to talk to women, except when he's in his knight's uniform, and thus he has no way of approaching the princess. Someone knocks on the door and enters. It's Agnes herself. The subordinate calls him Your Highness, but Kylo doesn't understand why. As for Agnes's outfit, the maids begged her to wear it, fearing she might catch a cold. Kylo apologizes to Agnes for putting her in danger due to his negligence and promises it won't happen again. Agnes didn't come for that reason, and then she thinks of playing along, saying that if it happens again, she'll impose a severe punishment. He thanks her for her mercy. She asks how the area they couldn't search last time turned out, and Kylo says that Sir Victor Craven finished it. Then she asks what the next mission will be. Kylo informs her that there are no more missions at the moment, and that she only needs to participate in training. Thinking about it, he realizes she hasn't yet had the opportunity to greet the members. The plot didn't detail the members of the Black Knights, and she wonders what kind of people they are as Kylo accompanies her. Kylo introduces her as the Princess of the Empire, and that from now on, she will be a Black Knight. Agnes says that while she's wearing that uniform, she will allow them to treat her as an equal. A bold man with green eyes introduces himself as Victor Craven. A shy girl with black hair and red eyes is named Anna Montrose. Agnes asks Kylo if they are the only knights left, and he says no. He explains that some are in prison for things like deserting during the war, trying to kill their enemies during the chaos, and developing magical tools using demon corpses. Therefore, the remaining members are together with those on a mission, making a total of 6. Now she can proceed with individual training, and Agnes is surprised to realize that Kylo is already leaving. She thought they would stay together when she joined the Knights, but nothing turned out as she had planned. Anne touches her, and she turns to see a kitten she already knew. The girl says that Coco wants to thank her. The girl's voice is so soft that it's almost inaudible, so Agnes asks what the girl said. The girl hides behind a chair, embarrassed. The characteristics of humans transformed into zombies are black skin and red eyes. Because of this, people with black hair and red eyes are persecuted due to their demonic appearance. Anne says that Coco wants to thank her for saving him. Agnes wonders if that's the reason the girl is so shy, and she thinks the cat is cute. And she says it's a relief that a fellow knight and her kitten are safe. Anne says she's happy that Agnes found him, but something has been bothering Agnes since earlier. She looks at 2 unfamiliar weapons. Agnes asks whose weapons they are. Victor picks up the iron hammer and says it's his, and the other one belongs to Anne. Anne shows her weapon to Agnes and asks if she wants to see how it works. Agnes says it's not necessary, but Anne explains that it has 5 layers of blades and is coated with monster poison to make it more effective. She adds that it can grind monster bones in seconds. Agnes says she wants a weapon too. Anne tells her that if she goes to the weapon factory in Hwangsong, a craftsman will make one for her and asks if they can go together. Agnes agrees. The source of the Empire's magical engineering development came from a purple stone planted in the Empire. The first emperor combined minerals that everyone thought was simple, and with his special mana, he managed to create and awaken a magic stone. He sealed all the demons underground with a single light, and thousands of years later, the demons returned to the surface, and people began making weapons with magic stones. They believe that one day a member of the imperial family will be born with the ability to use the first emperor's powers. The merchant trembles when he sees the princess and asks how she ended up in a place like that. Agnes says she's there to request a weapon. To make a weapon, Agnes needs to choose a magic stone with the right wavelength, and she can select a stone and press it. Anne informs Agnes that when she finds the right stone, her palm will feel warm. After touching several stones, Agnes says they all look ugly, so the merchant shows her a stone kept in a chest. A special magic stone meant to create weapons dedicated to the princess's guard. She asks if magic stone weapons don't harm people and whether that makes them unsuitable for security purposes. The merchant says that nowadays, it's a combined weapon, so it can be used against both people and monsters. Agnes asks if it's possible to copy these weapons in other countries, and the merchant says no, because they have a magical bond and are completely destroyed when disassembled. Before, the merchant thought the princess was spoiled, immature, and violent, as the rumors suggested. Agnes tells the merchant he's meticulous but not worrying about whether the weapon is used in other countries. In fact, Agnes seems concerned about the Empire. As expected, people don't know her until they meet her in person. When Agnes touches the stone, her hand becomes warm and she's startled. The merchant says it's a very good wavelength and she wasn't burned, it was just the sensation of warmth, and asks what type of weapon she wants. Agnes says she wants a firearm. The merchant made a shotgun, and Agnes was a bit worried about whether it worked as she requested, but she loved the design. Anne says Agnes is improving quickly and will do well in a real scenario. Agnes agrees and remembers Kylo, whom she couldn't see because of his mission. Anne and Victor seem free, and Agnes wonders why he's always so busy. Someone pulls her out of her thoughts. Victor and Anne talk about how fun the mission will be and how amazing it will be. Anyway, there's no mission, and people are just avoiding Agnes. It's comfortable but boring. They tell her to be careful on her way home, and then she realizes that the place is dedicated to elite knights and decides to sneak a peek. 4 of them are Sirius Melville, the Womanizer, Diana Lennox, captain of the White Knights, and Hugo Rodian, a fan of the Saint. In the original story, the Saint was competing with Hazel for the main role. The Saint talks to the 4 and asks if His Majesty changed Princess Agnes's affiliation to strengthen the other 3 knights, besides the White Knights. She continues, saying that just when the White Knights and Sir Spencer suffered so much, she wonders how His Majesty could do this. Hugo says it's disrespectful to speak about His Majesty's decision like that. Santana says it doesn't make sense. It's normal for her to think this way since she's a commoner. It's hard for her to understand Agnes's outdated culture. They continue talking, now about how Sir Spencer verbally abused the princess, according to recent gossip. Hugo is the only one talking to Santana, while Sirius and Diana continue looking on with disapproval. And according to the maids, the princess cried until they left, says Hugo. Based on the situation with Diana, this was expected, and Agnes wonders why Sirius, who's a womanizer, behaves like that with the Saint. Agnes remembers that he has a habit of flirting, but he's so attached to his position that commoners are an exception. Santana says she can't believe Agnes cried from being hurt, considering she always hurts others. Diana says they should stop talking about the princess, as you never know who might be listening. Santana asks why Sir Lennox always does this when she's talking and wonders if it's because she's of common origin. Santana begins to cry, and Hugo tells the captain to apologize for being mean to her. Agnes thinks Santana looks so fragile when she moves her shoulders and that she should learn that skill. Agnes wonders if Santana was meant to be the main character originally. When she was with Raymond, she acted like an angel, very good at pretending, which is quite impressive. In reality, Santana is a manipulator. Santana makes a scene, saying that everyone hates her because she's a commoner. Sirius asks what the hell she's doing, and Hugo asks Sirius if he's raising his voice at the saint. The original protagonist, everyone's first love, the epitome of innocence, Hazel Devo. Diana asks if she's finished her mission. Hazel says yes, as she was with the commander. And Santana asks about Raymond Spencer. Hazel says he must be at the barracks since they just arrived, so she went there alone. Santana asks if Hazel knows about the rumors that Sir Spencer verbally abused the princess. Hazel doesn't understand anything. Santana says Spencer isn't the kind of person to say such things. Hazel tells Santana that the commander hates women who bother him as much as he hates demons. Santana thanks Hugo for his hard work on the long journey, comments on how cold the wind is, and says she's going inside. Hugo says he'll escort her. In the original story, he seemed like a boy with a platonic love for the saint, but in reality, he's just an otaku. Agnes thinks about slipping away quietly too, but someone notices her presence. It's Sirius, who asks if she heard everything. Agnes says she doesn't want to cause any more trouble. Sirius asks if Sir Spencer has returned from his first mission. The rumors say he'd rather marry a piece of trash from the ground than marry the princess, and that the sewer fits the palace better than she does. Agnes says he didn't say any of that, and Sirius asks what he did say. She wonders how she should respond. If she tells the truth, no one will believe her, and if she lies, her conscience will bother her. Plus, if the lie is discovered, her reputation will fall even more. So she says she doesn't want to remember what happened. Sirius asks if, even if the rumors are true, she's protecting the commander. Agnes says that, in any case, she'll keep the matter between them. Sirius is impressed, wondering if the commander really did it. Agnes and Victor are standing side by side. Kylo asks if they were training or something, and Victor says they were testing the rookie's weapon together. Kylo asks if they were oppressed or something, and Annie responds that would never happen because Agnes is always kind and gets along well with Coco. Anne says she listens to stories about monsters. Kylo asks if they're confusing things because there's no way the princess. These two have less experience than Kylo and are completely uninterested in any field outside of their own. Maybe the only people who can see her without prejudice are these two in the palace. Moreover, Kylo has been observing the princess lately. Victor asks Kylo why he left the office so suddenly. Kylo thinks they will soon see the true face of the princess. Kylo says there's news about Agnes. She'll be sent on a new mission, including him, and all the Black Knights will go together. Sirius is reflective, leaning against the wall. When he was younger, he frequently visited the Imperial Palace because he was the Crown Prince's plaything. Princess Agnes was very different back then, arrogant, bossy, and even violent when she didn't get what she wanted. But as time passed, all those behaviors were a cry for attention and affection. She lost her mother and nanny very early. Her father is busy, and her brother is cold toward her. Due to the gap in status, she couldn't be friends with others, being distanced from everyone she was close to, living in solitude. People who have been close to her for a long time find it hard to hate her because they know the loneliness she faces. Even the commander clearly knows this, and while he can't be lenient with the situation, how could he be abusive? If it was the day the princess went on her first mission, Sirius asked Spencer to keep an eye on her. If he hadn't sent the commander, the two would never have met, and the princess wouldn't have heard that verbal abuse. So, he wonders if it was his fault and what he should do. In the banquet hall of the Imperial Palace, the king is having lunch with Agnes. He's worried about her, noticing that she seems thinner. According to his informants, she has been continuously participating in the Black Knights training every day, and as expected, entrusting her to Kylo was the best decision. It seems the Emperor is having strange thoughts again, but there's another reason for her current state. Agnes excuses herself from the table, saying she needs to prepare for tomorrow's mission. A 4-day, 3-night journey. She's been so anxious that she hasn't slept in days. The White Knights' carriage arrives, as they will also be participating in the mission. The White Knights travel to closer areas, while the Black Knights go to longer, more distant places. She wonders why they're carrying so much luggage. Even during the war, they were trained as ammunition gatherers on the front lines, and now they're struggling in a farther location. The mission assignments were random, and of course, the leader of the 4 Knights is Raymond. When she thinks about it, she doesn't feel bad for spreading those rumors. She wonders why he's looking at her like that. Kylo arrives and explains that they're heading to Area SP3, which suffered significant damage during the war. After encouraging and helping the residents, the main mission is to inspect the villages under control for restoration projects. Since it's going to be a long trip, they'll also be accompanied by soldiers. He says this mission will be difficult, as the monsters last time appeared in large groups. Agnes says that she'll have to stay close to the commander to avoid danger. She asks if he knows that her father won't leave him in peace if she gets hurt. For a moment, he thought it was just bias, but she really has become a difficult woman. Agnes asks Kylo if he didn't say they needed to leave earlier. It won't be any different from babysitting. After a few hours, night falls. Kylo, mounted on his horse, says they'll camp there tonight and that he'll inspect the area, but the rest can prepare to sleep. Everyone agrees, setting up their tents and lighting a fire, and Agnes doesn't know what she can do to help, as she has no experience with camping. She sees something and wonders if it's food, and since it's her first time camping, she plans to make a nice dinner. Kylo returns from his patrol, exhausted. He sees Agnes and the others happily dining and talking, and thinks that tonight's meal was supposed to be dried meat and soup, wondering where the lobster came from. Earlier, the soldiers were complaining about having to accompany the princess, thinking she'd be a burden. So Kylo wonders how they became so close to the princess. One of the soldiers thanks the princess for making the evening in the field so enjoyable. Kylo suspects that the soldiers must have gotten the lobster because the princess complained about the food, and he finds it absurd. Another soldier says that the dinner served is something only found in fancy restaurants. Kylo approaches Victor and sits next to him. Victor tells the commander to grab some lobsters too. After another day of marching, the knights arrived at the shelter near Area SP3. Someone comments that the knights and the princess arrived today. A woman is talking to another about this and asks why it had to be the princess and not the saint, considering there's no one in the village who has turned into a demon. But even so, it's worrying, as the Black Knights and the princess are heading there, and she fears the princess will treat them like slaves, just as she harasses the saint. After saying those words, the knights arrive. The village chief welcomes them and greets Sir Kilo Grey. He immediately asks about the report on the sick. A little girl looks at Agnes and says she's never seen someone so beautiful. She asks a boy if the saint changed her plans and came here. The boy calls her an idiot and says the saint's hair is black. The girl asks if she's the princess and if royalty rides horses, as she thought they used carriages. Agnes looks at them, dismounts from her horse and approaches, asking where the sick people are. The children say they're inside the building and point to its location, and Agnes thanks them for the information. There are 2 diseases caused by demons, and one of them is demonization. The skin darkens, the person loses their sanity, and they attack others like monsters, and only the saint can purify the demonized. The other disease causes the body to slowly necrotize and is incurable. Not even the saint's purification can heal it, and only a few high-ranking mages, at the peak of their power, are able to cure it. Agnes is the youngest light mage alive. This means it's time to improve her image with Kylo. Emma calls out to Kylo, saying there's a serious problem. The water supply has completely stopped. And for the past few days, the only water coming through has been mixed with monster blood, indicating there's a problem in the village. Kylo asks if there's no other water source deeper in, and she says those are also filled with blood, with no clean water available. He thinks that Agnes is a mage capable of purifying, but she has never used those abilities on others before, and he's not sure if she will cooperate. Kylo asks Victor where Lady Agnes is, and Victor says she went into the building earlier. So, the commander thinks he can't leave her alone for a minute, because if Agnes does something to the villagers, it'll cause chaos, and the Emperor will blame him. He hears crying and wonders what kind of trouble she might have gotten into. When he enters, he sees Agnes healing the sick, and then she notices Kylo is there and greets him. The villagers say she healed them and thank her for the blessing of the imperial family. Agnes humbly says she's just another knight following the commander's orders and thanks Sir Grey. The villagers call them both heroes, and Kylo turns red. Agnes asks why he came to see her. He says there's a problem with the village river, the water supply has been cut off, and he asks if she can purify the water, noting that she must be exhausted from using large amounts of healing energy. Agnes says she's feeling a bit dizzy and hugs Kylo. She says she thinks she'll feel better if she leans on him for a while, and then she'll be able to purify the river. Kylo thinks that with her clinging to his arm, it's going to take a long time to get to the river. So he picks her up in his arms. When they arrive at the river with the village chief, he informs them that the situation is worse than it was in the morning. Agnes is still holding on to Kylo, and he thinks her condition must be really bad for her to allow herself to be carried all the way there. He notices she's holding on a bit too tightly, while she's thinking that she'd like to stay like this forever. He asks if she's really going to purify the water, and Agnes says it seems like too much to purify all at once. She suggests that they purify just the necessary amount of water for hours, gradually solving the problem at its root, and asks if they can gather as many buckets as possible. After the helpers bring several buckets, Agnes purifies the water, and Kylo orders them to take the buckets and distribute them to the villagers. Agnes wasn't sure if she could purify it all at once, and didn't realize her character had so much hidden power. Kylo asks if she's okay, and if she's feeling dizzy again. She says she needs to go back to how she was before, and thinks that, up until now, this dizziness has been good because it allows her to lie freely against Kylo. Until now, it was just an act, but she thought she was fine until she started feeling really faint, and he asks what's happening, and then she passes out. He shouts for someone to find a place to take the princess immediately. In her past life, two girls wondered if that was why she was always alone. One said that she was a bastard child and that Agnes's mother abandoned her, and that her father was famous but had once gotten drunk and smashed all the windows of the local businesses. Even with her family causing problems, she didn't apologize and just stayed on her phone, not talking to anyone. They said Agnes was strange and found her uncomfortable and disgusting. Living isolated like that was hard, especially because of her family's reputation. Even so, Kylo was just like her. In the story, he worked so hard that he ended up dying. She felt less lonely, and he had been the light in her life, and she would do anything for him. Agnes wakes up in her current life and thinks she felt so comfortable in his arms that she didn't realize she was all right. Kylo asks if she's okay, and she's surprised that he took care of her personally. He tells her that what happened was due to accumulated fatigue and that she should rest well and prepare because they're going to investigate the restricted area. She notices he's colder than usual, but she doesn't mind since she saw his beautiful face, which makes her happy. While she was unconscious, Kylo heard her groaning and wondered if she was having a nightmare and if he should wake her. When he went to touch her to wake her, she called his name. The next day, the villagers wonder if the princess is okay and can't believe she's working so hard for the village. They question why there are such rumors about her. They also wonder if people are just taking advantage of the situation because she's well known, as aristocrats often do. Agnes enters the tent, and everyone asks if she's all right. The way they look at her has drastically changed in just one day. She says she's fine now and then leaves. Seeing Kylo, he says she looks better, and she replies that it's thanks to him. Kylo announces that they're about to depart. While the soldiers protect the shelters and residents, the night's mission begins. He says they'll divide into two teams for the investigation and looks back, seeing Victor and Emma playing with their weapons, which they quickly hide. The first group consists of Emma and Victor, and the second of Agnes and Kylo. He calls Agnes and comments that her hair doesn't look like that of a worn knight, and that it could be dangerous, so she should ride with him on this mission. Agnes tells the horse to wait patiently for her, and it neighs. After a while, Kylo says they'll dismount and investigate the area. He explains that monsters usually hide in forests due to their wild instincts. Agnes asks what they should do with the horse, as a monster could attack it. Kylo says his horse is trained for combat and will flee if things get dangerous. He offers her a hand to help her off the horse, not understanding why she's smiling like that. He also doesn't understand why he's acting like a babysitter on this mission, something that should have been Raymond's job. And for a moment, he's confused about why the princess was calling his name while sleeping. He soon realizes that his presence is a nightmare for the princess, a woman who hates him so much. His thoughts are interrupted when he hears a noise and asks what that sound is. Agnes asks if there's a landmine or something nearby because she thinks she stepped on something. Kylo shouts for her not to lift her foot, and they fall together. He explains that it's a demon-made trap mine designed to capture prey, which activates when stepped on for a certain amount of time. Agnes is scared and asks how long they'll be trapped, fearing that monsters might appear. Kylo says the monsters won't come, but they'll be stuck for 20 to 30 minutes. She's relieved to be safe and with Kylo, and takes the opportunity to say she's feeling a bit dizzy, asking if she can lean on him. She explains that she doesn't feel fully recovered after using so much magic day after day. Kylo agrees and she leans on him, making him feel embarrassed. He hates Agnes for looking down on people based on their origins, for being arrogant, favored by the Emperor, and for loving Raymond Spencer. He thinks there's nothing about her that he likes, but he wonders if she's wearing a floral fragrance or if it's her perfume, and whether all women have such soft skin. A warmth he's never experienced before, and he tells himself to calm down and think about the Greys and Raymond Spencer. She leans closer into him and apologizes for losing her strength. Agnes thinks his muscles are firm. Suddenly, they return to the surface, and she asks if he's all right and says she'll be careful not to step on another mine. She extends her hand to him. When Kylo takes her hand, he says it's hard to see the mines, so it will be difficult to avoid them. Before he can finish his sentence, Agnes interrupts, saying he's suggesting carrying her to avoid stepping on mines, and that it's a great idea since she needs to conserve energy. Kylo thinks she sees him as a servant or pack mule and says it'll be better if he carries her. It's no surprise that the princess doesn't treat him like a man, let alone a human, and he wonders why that makes him angry. They reach the lake, and Kylo says the contamination seems to have started there. Agnes says she'll start purifying the river from the lake since Sir Montrose and Sir Craven are on the other side. She takes out her magic shotgun and uses it to purify the river, and it works. Pema and Victor call the commander, covered in blood. Victor says several monsters appeared and that it was an enjoyable hunt. Kylo asks if they found the source of the water contamination, and Emma says yes, as the surviving monsters took the corpses of their kind and were performing a resurrection ritual, with the blood flowing from there. Kylo praises them and says they will return and remove the mines from the village. However, the knights didn't know that the mines collected that day were being stolen by someone, Agnes, who next time wants to ensure she gets trapped with Kylo again. After returning to the villagers thank them for restoring their home. Agnes can see the imperial castle in the distance. The soldiers talk among themselves, saying that the trip wasn't so bad, and they notice the White Knights have also just returned. They wonder why the knights are using carriages. Liliane Santana asks if he is Kylo. He looks at her with a frightening expression, and Hugo asks if she's all right. The saint says she was a little surprised by his stern look. In the end, she's displeased that they didn't bow to her. It's not that Agnes dislikes Liliane, but her obvious fear is cute. Liliane is surprised to see the princess there and asks if she's returning from a mission. Agnes becomes arrogant and asks if Liliane asked permission to speak since she interfered with her top priority, Kylo. She says that, according to the laws, someone of lower status should not address someone of higher status, and it seems Liliane hasn't learned the basics. Liliane apologizes but reminds Agnes that she herself asked to be treated as a member of the Black Knights while wearing this uniform. Agnes says she gave that order only to Sir Kylo Grey and asks if Liliane intends to distort His Majesty's orders. She continues, saying that someone who doesn't even know the imperial laws can't be part of the White Knights and perform their duties, and that this reflects the captain's confusion. The soldiers whisper, but even though the saint made a mistake, maybe Agnes overreacted, and even Spencer was criticized, despite having nothing to do with the situation. Spencer thinks it's clear the princess is retaliating against him for not accepting her feelings, which could ruin his reputation, along with spreading baseless rumors like verbal abuse and her suffocating expression. Later, Agnes presents herself to the Emperor and informs him that she completed her mission. For a while, she wasn't able to leave the princess's palace due to the Emperor's overprotection. While she was away, her maids went on vacation at the family estate. A few days have passed since she returned. Her maids give her a bath and ask how the mission went. Agnes asks about Daisy, and the maid says she'll return next week. A few weeks ago, the Black Knights and White Knights met at the gate, someone comments. A woman asks if the other knows what the princess did. She says Agnes pointed out the saint's mistakes in front of everyone and blamed Sir Spencer for it. The maids think it was good, as it happened to Santana, who is annoying, but the men are supporting the commoner's cause. One maid says she heard that Agnes met the White Knights when she returned and that Spencer was blamed for Santana's mistake. They ask if Agnes is okay after seeing Spencer again after that day. Agnes says there's no way she's okay and that every time she sees him, it feels like her heart is being stabbed. She wonders how long she'll have to pretend to be heartbroken and says she doesn't want to talk about him. One maid mentions that she attended a social event near Area SP3 and heard people talking about Agnes in the streets. The villagers had prejudice against the Black Knights, but they received so much help, and as a sign of gratitude, they spread exaggerated stories. When the princess broke up with Spencer, it caused a huge stir among the nobles, who began vying for the chance to marry her. The most agitated person about the news is Duke Raymond, who asks his son what he said to Princess Agnes and tells him he should be grateful that the most noble woman likes him. The Duke thinks it would be nice if they got along like brothers, just like when they were kids. Spencer tells his father to stop, making it clear that there's no possibility of him marrying the princess. The Duke says Spencer can't see what's right in front of him. In his immature days, the Duke lost his love because he thought familiarity would guarantee it. His mother married his father because he resembled her first love, and she spent her entire life trying to win his heart. The only daughter of the woman his father loved is Agnes, a reckless child, but she always followed him, saying she liked him, making him feel as if she were his sister. To ensure you don't miss the unfolding of this romance, give a gentle tap on the notification bell, and I see you on the next tale.